switching? Why is it not switching?
Welcome to another edition of Real Talk, Straight Talk. I'm your host. People, I don't even know what to say. I'm like a little tongue-tied. It's been a long time since I've been on this show. I think, Angel, you should welcome me back to the show. It's all right. You know what? I'm here. Like I said, welcome everybody to another edition of Real Talk, Straight Talk. Got some people in the house. You all know Angel, of course. Once again, thank you for giving us the Fix Hair Salon to host our show. We got Mr. Joseph. You know what? DJ Jose. I can't even get to the whole thing. DJ Jose. I'm going to talk to him for a minute. But before I do that, I got to send a big shout out to all our sponsors. I want to start with the Wien Community Center. Big shouts to Pastor T, Pastor C, all the staff and the volunteers. Wien Community Center. Got to move on to, of course, the Fix Hair Salon where we're at right now. Big shouts to Uplight 7, put to the barber and everything. Got to go down the street to, one of my favorite places, Paranoid Bar and Grill. Big shouts to Jiggy and the crew. Gonna head out of town for a minute. Got to talk about what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the 613 Rhythm Movements Community Association. Big shouts to Brooks and Ashley and their Flow seniors, right? So I got to send once again big shouts to Rhythm Movements. Coming up to Hamilton, Soul Kitchen Radio, another one of our sponsors, been with us from the start. Big John and the whole crew up there. Finally coming back to London. Got to send a special shout out to the ladies of Ollie Commercial Interior Design. Once again, big shouts to the ladies of Ollie. Now that I got that, did I forget it? Oh, one more. Can't go nowhere without saying big shouts to my man Steven, aka DJ Kevin Evans, the whole Pride crew. They've been also one of our sponsors. And the Royal Bank, of course, Natalie and them, right? So, I finally got all those out of the way. Now, welcome to the show, Mr. Joseph. Hey.
Well, thank you.
It's your first time on the show.
Yeah, first time, yeah.
You look a little nervous.
Yeah, I am.
You're nervous? People, this is DJ Jose, right? Angel, what's up?
Chilling. How you doing today, Colin?
Oh man, I'm just glad to be back and
taking over your show?
No, not taking over. Sharing the responsibilities. I'm back and this is my week, right?
Amazing.
And it's only fitting because this week we're going to talk a little bit about music, specifically. To all our out-of-town people, once again, we got people in Hamilton and we got people in Ottawa. Yeah. We're going to talk about the music scene in London. And a very special thing happened in November of 21 where UNESCO made London the very first music city in Canada, right? So, first of all, what does that actually mean, right? That's one of the things I'm going to ask the two of you what you think it means, right? And do you think London deserves it? I'm going to ask you that question up front, and then we'll talk a little bit about stuff in London, and then we can get to whether London truly deserves it or not, right? But you know what? Big shouts to the people that actually worked hard to get this designation. There were some people that actually lobbied for it and they wanted. So now it's here. We're the very first in London, Ontario. First thoughts on London being designated a music city.
You want to go, Joseph?
No,
do you want me to go?
Ladies first.
Well,
we're very gentlemanly here.
Amazing. Okay, so what I think about that is it's actually a really good designation for London because when I was just reading through like how London, the music scene in London is going and where it's come from, you look up like the greats of like Jack Richardson, who was like a really big producer, and he did like big things for London, and like over like there's a whole lot of albums that were released under him. So just coming from that perspective of the people who did the greats, and also looking at people who worked with Celine Dion to make hit albums and now working with Miley Cyrus and them, it's like London deserved that because the Dunos kind of revealed what we had. like the great talent we had, and for the tuners to come over to London and have that, and then there was a presentation done on TV that kind of highlighted all the good stuff, and it kind of made me feel like, wow, seems like everything's coming out of London. It's a place to stay. So that's what I kind of think about that.
Now let's put one of London's most prominent DJs right now on the urban scene. Let's put him on the spot. What do you think about London being given the designation Music City?
I think as a small city, it's definitely a good look because I think London has always deserved, but it just never really got a chance, right? Like we probably had a lot of stuff going on. But it's just like we never really got credit for it.
Yeah.
Because it happens, because the smaller city just goes without getting no credit, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. I forgot to mention that we do have another guest coming, right? Work commitments. It's going to be a little bit late, but we're going to have on the show another one of London's DJs, name of Fresh C, otherwise known as Matthias Chona. I call it like a representation of the genealogy here in London, right? Because if you want to look at it, I'm like the old school head here, and then next down the list would be Fresh, and he's coming, and then we come down the list with Josie, right? So we've got 3 representations
That's
here,
true.
so maybe 3 different perspectives of this whole thing, right? My first thoughts on London being designated a music city. Great thing for London, right? Great thing for London. Like you said, Jack Richardson, in case people don't know, there's the Jack Richardson Awards, which is usually held at the, not Rummer, I want to say Rummer's because that's where it started, but Music Hall, downtown London, right? So big shouts to the Manuals and the whole crew over there at the Music Hall. So there's the Jack Richardson Music Awards, right? Now, on one scene, London is truly well represented, right? Yeah. But when I think of a city getting a music designation, I think of an inclusive of all music genres, right? You can't have a city being designated a music city, and it's only for this genre and only for that. It should be
inclusive.
Because first of all, it's coming from the United Nations, right?
Yeah.
So it should be all-inclusive, and there should be representation. Now, when we talk about representation in London's music scene, one of the first things that we heard was for our younger artists, right? Our younger artists were saying, well, you know, especially the urban artists. When I say that, let me be very clear. I'm talking about the hip-hop artists. I'm talking about the R&B artists. I'm talking about the few reggae and dancehall artists we have, and also Afrobeats artists, right? They don't feel represented, right? And we're gonna talk to, you know, I can talk to my man Jose over here because he's been very much on that scene. But Jose, I want you to give us a little insight into your DJ history so people get a real sense of who you are and how you get to be here.
I don't know where to start.
Start with when did you decide you wanted to be a DJ?
Oh, so I grew up in Zimbabwe, like for 18 years. I actually turned 18 on the plane coming here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I was in boarding school, you know, we used to have the school dances and stuff. So I kind of figured out how much they were paying the DJ. So that's when I decided I wanted to be a DJ. Because I thought I would make the money, but the school ended up using me to volunteer.
Yeah.
So I never made the money.
You never made the money?
I never made
You just volunteered your services.
I ended up just being a volunteer, yeah.
The volunteering is good. You got volunteer hours.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And then, so when I came over to Canada, I was just, you know, volunteering again, you know, volunteer. I used to play at the family center up there on Gipps Lane and Adelaide area there. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I just started to meet other DJs, and then I just ended up into the clubs and stuff, yeah.
Okay, so when did you decide that you're going to be a commercial DJ?
I guess when the money started coming in, you know. That's when you're like, okay, you know, I could actually make a living out of this or something like
Okay. I remember me and you used to talk, and Fresh, we used to talk, and we used to talk about Afro beats, right? How there was a certain point in time that it wasn't popular to be playing Afro beats. In fact, we used to joke about it wasn't popular to be African at all, right? I want you to talk to me a little bit about that experience, because all these things go into why I'm saying, okay, London needs to be very inclusive, and it needs better representation when we talk about it being a music city. Love the designation though.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, love the designation, but I want to talk specifically a lot about black music in this city, and maybe more urban, because you know what, there have been quite a few people that have been honored through the London Music Awards, right, that are black, but mostly they've been in other genres, jazz and more what's called, I'm gonna say, sort of like white acceptable, right?
Okay.
Sort of like white acceptable.
Yeah.
So if it's accepted there, then it's like, okay, yeah, you know, you can get that kind of representation, which is not to take anything away from the artists that have won before, but it depends on who, you know, who's recognizing our talents. And like I said, we've had conversations where we talked about the urban artists, especially the younger ones, aren't getting their due for what. So as you take us through your DJ cycle, it helps us understand a little bit more. You can tell us about the issues, not so much issues, but how hard you had coming up and trying to get into certain scenes.
So I remember, coming up, that's probably like around 2015, 2016. It was kind of like hard, per se, as a black person to kind of get into the club scene, right? Because how it was kind of like, okay, there could only be, per se, one black DJ at a time playing downtown, and then he'll probably have his run, and after he's done, the next DJ comes on, right? So it's kind of different now, because now we have a lot of DJs and we have a lot of venues that way black people could go. They don't necessarily have to go to the same place all the time.
Okay. The funniest thing is that we share some of the same similarities, right? And I'm going back to 97, I think, when I came to this town, right? And when I came into this town, as a black DJ, to play in certain places, when you talk about downtown, right, you had to be accepted within that to be able to play downtown. Now, out on the outskirts, right, there are other places where there were black DJs. I remember I came in and there was there was like on the outskirts, there was like Hillbilly Willies and there's a few. There was this place over by Southdale. It was a restaurant. I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it was a chain. Well, there was two in London, and I remember DJ Steele and an older some of the guys that were part of the Kingdom of Nubia Radio, the KNR guys, and that was at that time was Modi and Jalu, right? So Louis Brown, right? He was also at the other, like I said, I can't remember the name of the chain, but he was at the other one. So you had DJ Steele, which is Garth, he was at one, and Louis Brown was another. And I think in there was also DJ Starchild, because he's part of the KNR crew, right? So on that scene, you had black DJs, right? Club scene, there was DJ Ray Brown. We used to call him Sugar Ray, right? You had Ruckus, but Ruckus was still outside the road. He was with Rez, and they were, like I said, a gym, you know. And then you had Everfresh, right? And he was actually, I would call him a downtown DJ, because at that time he was playing in a place called The Shot, the Bass, and all that stuff. But as a black DJ, wanting to play certain types of music, they weren't open to it, right? They weren't really open to it. Like when we came along, it's kind of like, yeah, there are certain clubs, you know, they and I'm gonna say this, they only wanted so many black people in the club at a time, and you could see, you definitely know, because the popular perception that's been, not just in London, but in a lot of other places, is that black people bring a lot of trouble, black people this, black people that. We don't want so much of that music being played. Yeah. Right? So, and it's funny to hear in 2015, there's only a certain amount of DJs that black DJs, they only want a certain amount at a club downtown. So has it really changed? Yes, it has a little bit, but you know.
I remember an incident though. We had one of our barbers, he was a DJ in Toronto, and then he kind of applied for a position at one of these prominent bars around Wonderland, what was it, around Wharncliffe area. So he went there and he went for the DJing gig for the night. But then he's more Caribbean and he wanted to do the music and speak. So that
That didn't work out.
nah, they were just like, okay, thank you. But he did a lot of talking through the music
Yeah.
too, like yeah.
Well,
So,
you know what?
like that kind of took away from what they were looking for, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think. Okay, so that's a very very serious dancehall vibe and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think London was ready for that vibe.
No, I don't
In
think
fact,
so.
Excuse me. To be honest, as we come into 2020, as we're in 2022,
Yeah.
it kind of like, you know what, too much talking sometimes kills the vibe. So I can
Yeah.
see it on that level, right?
Yeah.
But as for an urban DJ, and I'm gonna say urban, if you're playing reggae and dancehall like when I come and wanting to come downtown,
Yeah.
you had to know how to get in. And you know what, I hooked up with a promoter, great friend. His name was B Large. He's been on this scene for a while. He's like a legend on the scene. And we got in through the all ages, because the one thing that you could understand was the kids, they were rebelling. They would listen to the hip hop and the R&B and reggae, right? And dancehall at that time, and they were with it, right? So we rode the all ages to a wave to get in, to force our way into the bigger clubs, right? And by the time we got to where we're going, by the time we made it to places like The Drink, which is now Cowboys, right? Drink that turns around, and they were like, okay, we'll play a little bit of it in the main room, right, for a little bit. And then they had a room that was just hip hop and R&B and reggae, right? But it's still, you know, they were pretty good with it in that way. And then I was fortunate to be able to, because of momentum with the all ages, I got into the main room at The Drink. On the other side of town, there was Everfresh, who was always, Everfresh was just an eclectic. I call him one of the best, not a main room DJ, but if you wanted what I call an eclectic vibe, if you wanted a vibe that just was like, he can take you from point A, I might take you from point A to point B, but he would take you from point A to Z, right? In everything. He'd drop a little he'd drop a lot of everything in his music, right? So I wouldn't say he was just a straight urban DJ, but he was just nice like that. And so he had this place, like I said, there was a place called The Shot and the Bass, and that place used to be like so packed up on a Wednesday night, it was just crazy, right? And that's how it was. Until like you literally had to force your way into as a black DJ, because they were looking at you with, you know, okay, we don't want you to play, you know, some of that. We don't want you to play some of that. I remember the last place I went to play at before I kind of called it a day for a little bit was a place they used to call Jim Bob Ray's, right? And Jim Bob's is where Toboggan is right now.
Okay.
Went to Jim Bob's, and it was like, I just left Phoenix, and they literally, the first night that I played there, I remember the guy looked at me and was like, okay, you know, when they played urban music, they played a lot of the X mixes. So these X mixes got all that funky stuff in it, so it was like nice and all that, but I came raw, I was a little bit more raw than that, right? And then I would talk some stuff, and they didn't want some of that. I only ended up there like for 3 nights because I just couldn't take it, and I just called it a day on that. I was happy, and that was it, right? And that's from a DJ perspective. You also happen to have a perspective from artists, right? Because you talk to a lot of artists. Also, your friends, you know, your friends and partners with music producer, right? Big shouts to Sheree, of course. Tell me a little bit about the vibe between with the artist, from an artist perspective, what they're feeling and stuff.
From an artist perspective, I think most of what has been happening over the years is most of again, like I said, it's usually maybe one black person could get a chance, right? Like a lot of black artists who work really hard over the year, and maybe one of the award shows comes up, and maybe only one black person could be nominated, and if they're nominated, most times they don't even get a chance to win, right? So now we have the ECA awards and all this other diverse stuff coming up. It definitely makes the scene better for sure.
Yeah, and since you bring up EC Awards, which we're all part of, right? One of the music aspect really truly came out of it because of people saying, our younger artists saying, listen, we're not getting at the London Music Awards, we're not getting what we think we should be getting. And that's not to take away from anybody else, but it's like, Canada, and if you look on Canada on the whole, yes, great amount of pop and rock, right? There's no getting away from that. But it's also produced the Drake, right? And there are very few artists that have been as big as Drake. Obviously, Justin Bieber's been bigger, but still, in terms of rock nowadays, and that's really where a lot of, not fight I would say, but a lot of guys, like when I talk to London guys, especially from the older rock generation, they don't look at hip-hop guys as musicians, right? They think a musician is somebody that if you either play a guitar or drummer or keyboards or something, if you don't actually know a note or can't recognize and play a note, whether it's regardless of what instrument, if you're not using a note, then you're not a musician. So the fight for hip hop was such that, okay, hip hop is not real musicians because they're stealing stuff. Back in the days when sampling was so prominent, right? In the 90s, there was a lot of sampling. There was really, really a lot of sample stuff. They were like, oh, they're stealing everything. So they're not real musicians. And that's trickled down to what I see in the London Music Awards and stuff, where the rock guys get all the credit. If you're on that genre, you get credit. If you're also on a house genre, when they talk about, I remember the first DJs. If you're on a house genre and house EDM genre, oh, you were recognized, right? And so it didn't leave space for our black kids or musicians that were on, like I said, the hip hop, R&B, and all that stuff. So which brings us to the Echo Awards, right? So I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about, because you're the one that actually was in the music aspect for the Echoes.
So yeah, I think they're definitely a game changer, right? Because now it's sort of like everybody gets a shot, and again, it's something for the community, done by the community, right? So because what that happens with the London Music Awards again is maybe they actually try to look into the community, but because they're not from the community, they wouldn't be able to understand or know, okay, who has been working this hard or whatever the case is, right? So I think the Echo Awards is definitely a really big game changer because it's kind of more diverse, and we are from the community. We know people from the community.
I also feel like with the Echo Awards, there's a lot of things that came up, like you say, with the London Music Awards, right?
Yeah.
With them, community is really big. I mean, they have to be in there to understand. And also, like, our urban artists, in a way, I feel wouldn't have the leverage to reach out to them and kind of be in the space that they would be in to be recognized, right?
True, yeah.
So that bringing the Echo Awards to the community, it's more, what I liked about it is that it was brought in by people from the community, right?
Yeah.
So brought in by people from the community to people in the community, and it was like a People's Choice Award rather than like, so it was a People's Choice. So most people kind of like voted it. You know what I mean? So like you're voting for people you actually know in the community, and we incorporated everybody. It became a black community thing, which was amazing because like with the London Music Awards, I feel like, okay, it's more people who already were prominent and then people, names that were already known that kind of keep popping up, or certain things that you don't see that are happening on the streets of Dundas in the summer.
Oh, that's
you know what I mean? So I feel like that was a really good job on your part as a music, with the music aspect of it, bringing in everybody and kind of like source, because you know most of the people come to you like play my demo or whatever, right? But so you would know more people, and having their names out there kind of brought life to the show. Yeah.
I gotta say a big shout out to one of our final guest is here, DJ Fresh Seeds, right? Like I talked about the genealogy, I talked about the generational thing, and I said after me would be the next generation would be Fresh, and then the next generation after that is Josie. He's here. We're glad to have him. So you know what? All that. People, if you saw me gesturing before and trying to get them on the set, get them right, so now I can actually smile about it and laugh about it because, what's up, Fresh?
Not much, just here, you know. Can you guys hear me? Everything's all right?
Yeah, I think you're good?
Yes, I'm good.
All right, so let me bring you up to speed on the conversation, right?
Yeah.
As you know, we talked about it, and I talked about with you before was London being designated a music city.
Yep.
What does it mean?
Yep.
We just went through some of the early days of both myself and Josie coming up and what it is for a black DJ to actually break it, get into to downtown, right?
Yeah. Okay.
If you know what I mean, because downtown was where the money was, right? So that's where I had Josie talk a little bit about artists trying to break in. You've been with Casper. You were with Casper for a long while, so you know about that.
For sure.
So you know what? First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about making it downtown.
Yeah.
Actually, give us a little bit of your DJ history, and then talk about some of your days with Casper. You know.
Okay. Shoot, I've been DJing for a long time now. Well, really not as long as you, but.
Hold on.
Yeah, you know, like I started off pretty young. I started when I was about 14, 15. Just basement DJing, whatever, and then kind of got into the clubs when I was around 20, 21. And then, like you said, kind of coming up in the scene, like especially downtown, especially north of Dundas. I don't know if I'm getting north-south right? But north of Dundas is a bit of a challenge getting up there. I think I started off at Club Large, which was like a staple club for us, at least for me when I was growing up. And then going into that, that's kind of how I just met different people like Casper, or I used to work with a team called From Nothing Entertainment at the time, met them, and just meeting various different people and just growing through the business. I mean, it's a journey like everybody else, right? You kind of have to figure out how you can navigate in and out of the club industry, I guess. You know, I feel like when you're black, you can't really get too focused on that. You just kind of find ways to be kind of creative and break through barriers and that kind of stuff, you know? But yeah, would you like Casper and stuff too?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I met Casper at Western. We used to do shows there, and we ended up bumping into each other. And we just kind of, we vibed from that point on, and it started off pretty small. I think similar with him, he just, we'd have shows, and we both kind of connected on the fact that we didn't really get into, like, we were known, right? But we weren't into those circles where most of like in terms of like, or the big nominations or the big awards and whatnot. And then we kind of connected on that, and we just started working hard together, and we kind of broke through this window of just doing shows, and we started getting a little bit of steam with some of the shows that we were doing by putting on good shows and whatnot, or performances basically for the crowd. And yeah, it kind of just snowballed after that, and finally we started getting into the scene. Pretty much that's how I'd say it was.
So the general consensus is that there's always been a struggle for black DJs to make it on that level to get, and at that level I'm talking about a Richmond Road kind of level, right? Where,
For sure.
Where the money was, right?
For sure.
And it's in contrast to the fact that the music, people actually like the music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't the music. So what we're getting back to, it's the establishment, the club owners, right? Because, you know what, hip hop didn't get to be that big if white kids wasn't buying hip hop, right? It's not black kids that bought hip hop that made hip hop what it is. Let's be really truly honest. At the end of the day, if white kids, or not even white kids, white people in the whole, if they didn't embrace and spend that money, right, to buy, at that point, at first it used to be records and then it was CDs and MP3s or whatever. If they weren't spending the money and at the concerts, right, then hip hop wouldn't be, or any form, you know what I mean? Hip hop wouldn't be where it is. But as much it's okay for the money to be spent, right? But it's not okay to have the guys that are creating it to be a part of it in that sense, right?
Touching testy waters right now. You're never gonna get booked downtown again.
No, but it's not. Is it testy waters?
No, you're right. No, you're right.
I've been there, right?
Yeah.
And I got fortunate. Let me tell you, I got fortunate. I wrote, we wrote a wave of kids that loved hip hop, R&B, and reggae. We wrote it right into the drink, right into the Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
And I got a manager at the Phoenix who was like, he looked and knew what stuff was, and he was like, you know what? Bam, you can pull numbers, and we did numbers, right? Now, after the Phoenix was over, right? I don't see too many other clubs embracing it like that, on that level, right? Not the watered down stuff. I mean, now you have it in smaller pockets, thankfully, right? You got SPs and all that stuff where you can play, and we've got our own in terms of a Paradise Bar and Grill and all that. But let's get back to the Richmond Road. Before this stuff, right? And maybe you can say, you know what, Quincy and those guys, when they had they started to usher an era in. But once again, what was it? B Large is a black club owner.
Yeah.
Quincy was a black club owner and manager, right? And then we got into the Wands the Wands and those guys, right? That started to bring some of that in, but it still came with the places that you don't see that black crowd. Not even the black crowd, but it's how the music itself that they want there.
I think like when you speak about that, you also got to talk about how like us as a people, us black people, we also have to take some accountability in some of this, because also we didn't take care of some of our own things,
Right.
which also in turn it also made us not trust each other to do business together, and then that gap allowed the other culture to come in and take advantage because we couldn't be organized amongst ourselves.
Which is true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're gonna get to those you know what, we went on some topics there that we're definitely gonna have to bring some other people in on this and get to.
Yeah.
But my whole thing was, yes, there's been there is a certain amount of recognition, and we touched on it, and I want to really truly get back to that, the recognition, right? Not just as DJs. Yes, it's a DJ-dominated panel here for first, right? Later on, we'll get an artist-dominated panel so we can actually talk to the artists themselves.
Yeah.
But the one thing with us is that we've all interacted with artists at some point. So we're not just talking, we're able to talk on behalf of the artists to a certain degree. Like I said, you with Casper and Jose with Sheree and some of the other guys, right? How does it relate to now the Music City designation, right? And how I look at it is, once again, to be a Music City means that you should be inclusive, right? And you should, and the steps. Do you think the necessary steps are being taken now to address our being brought in from the outside?
Do I think the necessary steps? Honestly, I still think there's a lot of work to be done, right? You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like the Echo was the first start from our standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still think the guys, per se the guys downtown, they still have a lot of work to do because they still have to be able to go into the community and do the research. Okay, who has been doing stuff this year? Who is such and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when you look at, say they put out a nomination list, sometimes you don't know 3/4 of the guys who are on that list, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there might be a world where they're working in, but in our world, you don't really know maybe 3/4 of those guys. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about the people that I think are doing some of the work. At some point, we're going to get the iOS guys in. Big shouts to King and Zara and Asha for the work that they're doing. James, we can't go without talking about James O'Rourke.
Jaminati.
Jamin, right? London Arts Council, Jeremy and those guys, right? They have embraced the music, right? So they're looking at all music. I've had conversations with Jeremy, trying to get in. In fact, I've talked to him about gospel music and stuff because, you know, the words I had, the girls from RCCI singing. They're trying to get in because I think they understand now these are the ramifications. Not just, well, they've been doing it for a little bit, but now there's some ramifications to being a music city. And why I say that is, if we're not getting the recognition, then we have to question the designation, right? If we're our artists, and I'm going to say this is mainly for our artists. Yes, we're DJs, we're artists in our own right. But if our artists are not getting the recognition, then you have to question the designation. Because a music city, you know, if I think of a music city, the first thing that would jump out of my mind is Toronto, because Toronto's got everything, right? And I'm not just talking black music as well. They've got everything in Toronto. They've little pockets of everything. So if I'm thinking of a music city, I'm like, yeah, Toronto, right? Now, after that, and this is not to put my city down because I live here. I wasn't necessarily thinking London, Ontario, right? But there are people that, like I said, worked for it and pushed it. And I know even down to our mayor because they've got London Music Development, right? I talked to the guys over in London, Corey. Struggling for his name. Yeah, Corey over there, London Music Development, who's also part of London Tourism, right? So I think there's pockets there for us to not improve our relations, because for too often our musicians are stigmatized by the music they make, and they say, okay, so our music has this content in it and the music has that content in it. But you know what? We might say it in a much angrier way, but it's not like ours is the only music that says certain things. We say it maybe in a very raw sense. But rock and roll has said certain things. Rock and roll talk about, you know, when the rock and roll guys say, what makes a rock star? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's what they said, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yeah.
So all that entity is in there. Maybe not so much in hip hop where it's the life struggles and the street mentality, right? But they talk about it from their perspective. Right, and that's where people have to also understand the music is being talked about from their perspective. Their perspective was not being in the street, having to hustle on that level, in that way. But when hip hop first came in, right, that was the struggle that people were facing.
Yeah, I think one of the secret sauces of music is pain, you know, and I feel like us black people, we have a lot of pain, so we got a lot of that stuff to sprinkle in our music, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like you can't fake struggle. So like, I don't know, when we make music, it just comes from such a genuine place where it's like, you can't fake it, you know what I mean? It's real, and I feel like that's why it sucks in so many people from the outside, because we find clever ways to say things that maybe some of us like share the feeling, but you know what I mean, like we've gone through it, and it's something that we know how to express. But in terms of the city, I think it would yeah, you're right, with the designated, it would be nice for maybe some of those programs or whatever, who the powers that be could step a little closer into some of the communities, right? Because like you're saying, that's why the ISO project, that's cool what they're doing, because they're giving young black people the tools to put music out there, and it would be nice for the city to do the same thing as well too, right? And I think Toronto blew up also because I just don't think they looked for a cosign. They just did it, and people outside of Toronto saw what it was, and then they supported it after. So I don't know.
And to add to that too, like just with the designation part of it, we wouldn't. With the designation, I also feel like we would be doing a disservice if we didn't also thank the programs that they have at Fanshawe, because Fanshawe has a really good music program. I find there's a lot of students who go there, and even Western too, but there's a lot of students who go to Western and they like composing, they're writing, they're singing, they're doing all this stuff, and the professors there in the music the music faculty, they're really doing a good job, because a lot of good things are coming out there. Engineers in music, even like people who would be helping with the ISO project as well. They have people coming from that school to be in the society. So that there, we would like to really thank our colleges in this city too. But music too. One other thing that I've noticed with hip hop, and if you didn't go to the culture event, that was like next level fire. Honestly, culture. It's like I was listening, and it was all Afro beats, and then there was the reggae and hip hop. But then when the Afro beats came on, like everybody was like jumping, and then I also say, they knew the moves too. Everybody knew the moves. And I attribute that to TikTok. You guys have to be thankful for TikTok, because people are listening more to your music. Because all the TikTok stuff, it also kind of broadens the idea of what people listen to, right? Yeah. Because now you see people from everywhere, be it Muslim, Chinese, Indian, white, but you want a bum bum? So it's like when you play that, now you can tap into what you like as a DJ. You know what I mean? You're now bringing in the Afro jazz, and then now it's more acceptable for people of color trying to bring certain music into the society, and it's more acceptable, especially for London, because it's a very diverse community.
Well, it's gotten to be more diverse, right?
It's like. The colleges do it, like bringing all the students from there. They do that. They bring more diversity, and I think it's really good.
Yeah, but it was like yesterday I heard an African song on Virgin Radio. I was so surprised.
No way.
An African song on Virgin Radio,
Wow.
They've been playing a lot of...
Was it Wizkid and Drake?
No, it was what's the name? That Peru song, I think.
What? Yeah, you serious? Oh my God. That's big. That's really big. Okay, yes.
But you know what? That pair is big.
It is.
For it to get there, right? Because usually before it would take a long while for a new, and Afrobeat's been around for a minute, but it's now the new hot thing, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, it would have taken a lot longer for like a current hot tune to make it. And for those that don't know, you should know, Bruce is a current hot tune.
Yeah, but I was just kind of surprised, right? Because
that it was on radio.
Looking from per se, I've been here since 2014 until now. That's something that's rare to hear an African song up on there.
You know, you're right. Ed Sheeran's on it, so that's a big cosign. And to me, to be honest, that version's whack for me. I'm not gonna but yeah.
I heard it too. I think a few weeks ago, and I was like, "What? Put that up?" Because it's like it's nice to hear that, and like I'll go back to what's going on in London, like the Arts Council being able to open up Dundas Square in the summer for artists to just freestyle on the street. That's huge. And I mean, like, if that wasn't being done before, I mean, it's a lot of recognition for artists in London, I feel. And it's a way for them to be able to express themselves and also showcase to the city that this is what we can do. So yeah, I applaud people like Solo Whitey who are running that project, who are working hard to get that stuff done, you know, and I may not know all of them, but you
Big
know.
shout out.
Yeah, big shout out to people like that.
So then my next question, listening to all of this and what's being done, is the shift a generational thing? And when I say that, is it because of the young generation, right? Because like I was talking about when I came in and for a black artist in urban artists, right? To get recognition, he or she or whoever, you know, was fighting against I would say the rock clique.
Okay.
Right? So that would put it at an older, you know, an older demographic, right? Because rock in London isn't what it used to be. It's still there, right? It's still there. The kids now are into all kinds of things. They do, the rock is tinged with a lot of pop in it and all that stuff. It's not the same rock of my generation, right? And I find like my generation used to be the older white guys. They were just not having, certain things, right? So now, is it a generational shift that we're seeing, whereas the young kids are more open to just, you know, we don't care, music is music?
I would say, looking at the black people, I think it's us accepting us for who we are. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I think back then too, as black people, we had to force ourselves to try fit in.
Yeah.
So now we could say, you know what, they don't play that over there. I could go to this culture event over there. You know, whereas maybe in 2015 there might have been a culture event, but most of the black people will still go to Jackson and complain after.
Yeah.
It's just that association thing. Now it's cool to be wanting to bum and chill with the big boys. But back then it was more like, okay, I'm in a white city. I don't want my white friends to think I'm too African. You know what I mean?
Straight up. Yo, that's what it was. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. No, it was.
Yeah. It was like, I don't want my people to feel like I'm too African or I'm too black. I gotta like kind of fit in and talk like them, do like them, enjoy it. I don't want to lie to you. I grew up listening to a lot of white music. My friend, so when I moved to the US, I used to go to techno clubs and stuff because that's kind of like what I grew up listening. I'm sorry, but that's just me. And then my friend kind of moved to the US and then she's like, oh, take me to a club here. I'm taking her to a techno club. And like, she's like, what is this? And then I was like, what is this? And then I'm like, okay, then we go to a black club where there was like real music. And I'm kind of like, but then it's like, the surrounding I had with the certain people I grew up with kind of put me in a different place. And also just like my open-mindedness to certain types of music. My mom listened to certain genres of music growing up. So there's some things that I took a liking to and I felt that way. So it was innate for me to just go a certain type of way. But then when you come and then you like have DJs.
Can I piggyback her what she's saying? Because it's true. Like,
and so it's like when a DJ then plays something in the club that you resonate with from, okay, DJ Jose's playing something from back home. I'm like, you know what I mean? Who's this? I want to follow him wherever he's going to go. And that's the other thing with DJs. It's like, once you play something that just hits a chord with someone, then you're like, you got to follow off a life wherever you're at, whatever club you're at, you know, you're following, right? And that's something, I don't know, as DJs, you know, I'm just sitting around you guys. I might as well ask you the questions. As DJs, what do you do? Like when you're playing, do you like feel the club? Do you like look around to see what people are playing? Or do you come in already prepared with your music? What are you doing?
I'm never prepared before. I always just go through looking at the people.
I feel that's the best way to go.
I think I tried to prepare. That was my first time I played downtown. Man, I had a rough night, man.
Because you got your playlist.
What usually happens when you're preparing at home, right? You have this good scenario that you don't have, and you know,
you're like,
and once you
everyone
show up,
wants to
it's a
party.
Scenario, So I don't prepare anymore.
I hear you. Well,
and how about you, Huggy? Do you prepare or do you just like go with the flow.
No, he's so good. He has it down already. What do you
Oh,
mean?
you already
What
know.
are you talking- This is a legend over
People
here.
listen to the lip service. Listen to the lip service happened to get on the show, and that's only because
One time I came into music hall and there was like, there looked like 2,000 people in there, and he was just rocking everybody, like making them sing. I swear, it was crazy. It was crazy.
When was this?
So that's why I'm asking, does he prepare for that? Does he go in there ready to say, I'm going to rock this crowd like this? Or is it just something that just naturally just, okay, let me see what, and you wing it?
I got trained by one of the best in the business. You wouldn't know him. He's out of Toronto. His name is Barry Booth. Had crew. We're part of a crew, and in Toronto back in the days, you're usually part of a crew, right? The original foundation guys were all crew. The original foundation for a crossover with hip hop, dancehall, and everything was some guys called Sunshine. They're considered the first generation, right? And what it is, it's Jamaicans or Jamaican background, but we crossed over into the music. And when we say we crossed over, that means we weren't just playing reggae, because there's always been reggae crews from way back. But we started to play, they started to play classic funk and all that stuff, and then rap, because it wasn't hip hop, then it was rap and all that stuff, and then there was a little touch with Miami bass, right, and all that kind of stuff, right, and even house, because house is black. People gotta realize house was black music. We all used to play a lot of house because at that time house had a lot of vocals in it.
It's
right?
big in South Africa.
No, but
house music, right?
Yeah.
But house had a lot of vocal. But the funniest thing is, right? There came a split in the music, and when when white people got a hold of house, right, and when they got a hold of house. And they took it in a different direction.
Yeah.
And it was a European influence. There's way back, there was this group called Kraftwerk, which is one of the first truly electronic bands ever, right? And Kraftwerk was a German group, and they came in and they started to usher in an era where white guys took house and it was like no vocals, right? And when that split came in, that's where it started to turn black people off, because they started to come with the, as we used to say, you know what I mean? Like, people used to do that, right? And so there was, and so that's what it was, no vocals. But if you listen to original house, right? Original house is out of Detroit and Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Out of Detroit, and it's pure vocals. In fact, there was even a segment called Hip House that came out of Chicago, where that was the first collaborations or mixing of hip hop and house. It used to be called hip house, right?
Yeah.
So it had all that in it, right? So we used to play that. So we played the whole everything, right? And so we're like the second generation. We were the second generation. The first generation was Sunshine. They came in and they paved the way. And then we just came through the door and kind of blew it open. And then right after us came in the guys like starting from scratch, right? Which everybody know.
Yeah.
You can't, if you listen to Virgin Radio, you know about starting from scratch. But we're the guys like I think one of our things, we were the first guys that left Toronto and went to a place like out of Montreal and actually locked off a city for a caravana. But Sunshine, give shouts to them, because they paved the way for us to be able to go in and do these things. They brought it, we expanded on it, and all of that, I can see all you guys now, because we came in at a time when there was no radio playing this stuff. It was all TV, right? So got trained by, it was phenomenal. So he is a guy, like the only thing he would teach you was to make sure you're in on the breaks. You give people a chance to sing. You said, hey, you let them sing. And you play stuff to make them sing. You let them sing. At a point, you let them sing and don't cut it off yet, let them sing. And he taught you, he made sure that you were mixing in when you were supposed to. Back then, how classic funk and stuff had it was like 32 beat, you had a long, you could be riding that beat. And so back then it was, how smooth were you? Could you sit on top of that beat for the 2 minutes? Because technology was good, but it wasn't always. Some of the classic had that little hop odd beat in it, so it come off for a second, and you had to know your records to know when it was going to come off and still nail it. So you can't have no no separation.
Yeah.
Everything was on, and he used to be like, "Yo, you're off," and you could just be whoop, when you're off because it ain't right on. And remember, we're not watching no wave, so everything is you gotta be. No, I'm not.
You guys didn't have the sync button?
No, we didn't. There was no sync button. There was no sync button. There was no wave to watch, and it's a record, and it's a record, right? So you gotta be one with your with that platter.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Huggy, whilst we're on this, I just want to ask all you as DJs. I know the show's almost over, and we're getting the time flashing. What is the most rewarding part about being a DJ?
Wall slaps. When you get a wall slap and you get the whistles, that's goosebumps. It just gives you this nice feeling, you know? That's what it is for me.
Yeah.
How about you?
Two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two.
Because, and I'm gonna say two things because they're both different.
Yeah.
When you're in a room and you're in a big room, and you got and when I say a big room, let's say the room can take 100, but you only got 20 people. But you take them and bend them to your will, right? And if you know what that means, that's one of the hardest things because when people come in, and remember back nowadays, at least they got phones, they can look and do this. By the time they had no phones, so they looking around and they getting discouraged, right? So if you can bend that 20 people in that's phenomenal, right? That is phenomenal.
And your second?
And the second is when you gotta ram when the place is just tore, and it's not. No. Hold on. Here's the difference. And it's not the hits of the day that you're playing.
Yeah.
And you bend them that way.
Yeah.
Right. Because we used to do it like this. My thing was get the hits out real quick. Like you know, if you come to my part back, it was like, okay, you know what? I'm getting rid of the hits right now because now that tests you as a DJ.
Yes.
Can you take them on your wave? And the way to take them on your wave is get rid of the hits and see what happens then.
Terrible DJ etiquette. I'm saying it. Yo, Josie, help me, bro. I'm not lying.
Yeah, because that's like playing Russian roulette.
But if you're good.
What if your journey doesn't work?
No, but that's the hold on. And that's where I'm telling you. That's when you gotta know, and that's where all good DJs
It's facts though.
know when they got the people.
Yeah.
The minute you have the people, you know it. Because once again, the difference in my time and your time is we didn't have the waves, so we always had to be like when you're on the turntables like this, but you're looking that way, right? Unfortunately now, everything is the wave. You kind of have to look at the wave. You have to look at your laptop a little bit more. I mean, isn't it better not being able to have to carry 12 crates of records like we used to carry and all that stuff? Yes, but the downside is I got to look at my laptop a lot more as opposed to straight up with this. You knew your record.
Yeah.
You knew the only thing you looked for was where you made your cut points, right? But you knew your record, so you're looking like this. Because if you're looking like this, man, you're done. You're not even getting back in my taste. So you always were looking.
And what's yours, Wisdom?
I'm sure when people sing along.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in a party, as soon as I get that one sing along, I know it's gonna be a good night. Because no matter if I fail, I already know what they like, so I'm gonna just kind of come back around that sing.
Yeah.
See, he bet them. That's what I'm saying.
If I just get that one sing along.
That's what I mean. Once you get that, you know you're gonna take them
Or maybe
wherever.
just the bounce, you can tell when somebody's trying to move but they don't want to move.
Yeah.
So you can look around the room to find that one person. One person to test, like, what does that person want?
It's true.
Trying to move. They don't want to move yet, but at least there's hope.
All right. You know what, people? We're getting that we're past our time and all that, but we didn't really pass the time. We're just having fun on the show. It's great to have a DJ's perspective, right? We touch on a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm gonna wrap it up with the original thought on London being designating a music city. Is it deserved, right? And my answer is based on some of the things that you guys saying, especially now it's making the way where it's more diverse. Is that fair to say, Jose? More diverse. Artists are able to see what the hustle is going to accomplish. Or is that still touchy?
You know what? I'm gonna probably say maybe we don't deserve to be a music city, but maybe that's what we need. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because now it kind of shines the light and to see, oh, that place is empty. Why has it been empty for so long? Maybe let's do, you know?
Yes.
Plus, again, like the small pockets we're talking. Yeah, Fresh are talking about how on a Friday night there's now like 7 Latin nights in the city. Never heard that before.
Never.
We even have Arabic nights. We've never seen Arabic nights before.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to give credit to, some places like obviously what we're talking about applies, but I want to give credit to one club owner who in particular I feel was outstanding, but I didn't really find that got too much credit for me, and that was 765. His name is Jim Ferreira.
Oh man, yeah,
And
big, big shouts to Jim.
Yeah, I feel like owner of the people, you know.
I gotta say big shouts to Jim because I've been with Jim for like 10 years. I've done sound for him. Jim is my guy, so big shouts to Jim. And on that note, I want to take time to thank Fresh. We're gonna get you back, Jose, of course. DJ.
Yeah, big DJ.
I'm very salty for the awards I never won. Right? Angel, of course. Once again, thank you to all our sponsors. I'm going to try to go through them real quick. 613, we've got Rhythm Movements Community Association out in Hamilton. We got Soul Kitchen Radio coming in town. Of course, we got Paranite Bar and Grill up on Commissioners. Big shouts to Kwame United Cuts. Big shouts to Up Like 7 Barbershop. Ladies of Ollie interior commercial interior design. Big shouts to Natalie and the crew and everybody over by RBC. Can't leave out Steven with pride, and of course, how am I gonna? You think I'm gonna actually? People, my crew's talking to me. They're like, they got this big angel sign back there. They're waving it around. Let me try to read it. A and G. All right. Big shouts to Angel. Thank you, of course, for giving us this. We're gonna be back next week. We got a very, very special show. We're gonna come back with the music stuff. I think because we're trying to get ISO guys in. I'm not sure if it's gonna be next week because I think next week just to do another. Ladies special. When I say ladies special, Ladies Month, and they said International Women's Month. That's what March is called. I know we had an International Women's Day, but it's also been told that the whole month is celebrated for women. So I'm actually going to do a little interview with some women next week. They are business owners, and more importantly, they're new business owners. And so we're going to have them in the studios next week. So big shouts to Dr. K. She's going to be on. Big shouts to the ladies. The ladies. What are the names of the ladies that did the that you had on the weekend?
Oh, the soccer ladies?
Yes.
Is Bison. Give me one moment. Oh my gosh. Are you putting me on like that? Sweet and spicy. They're sweet and spicy. They're the sweet and spicy. Sweet, spicy.
Slow down.
Yeah. Slow down.
They are amazing
Sweet, spicy ladies. They started this business.
Yeah.
They're going to be here we're trying to get them here next week. I know Dr. K, I've got to talk to the sweet and spicy ladies. It's all about the ladies again. This time I'm going to be here. I'm not getting kicked out of mine. So thank you for being part of Real Talk, Straight Talk. This is what we call a Fade to Black. Big shouts to everybody here. Why do I look like I'm the shortest guy here?
Because you are.
Oh, look at this. Look at this, people. Look at this.